All right. Hey, everyone. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. I think it's time we get started here on a beautiful Tuesday evening, afternoon over here in North America. And greetings from wherever else you are in the world. Hope everyone is staying safe. And we're all inside today. Hopefully, you're inside. Could be on your laptop outside, but we're going to be talking about Python, the Python plugin for iClone. I'm going to be talking about various plugins that come with the Python. You can download from the marketplace, and we'll talk about how to use those in context of camera operations. So we're going to be focusing on a few of these plugins here. The first one is camera, smooth camera follow. We're going to be talking about that. You're probably aware of this outline already since you've registered for the webinar. We're also going to be talking about camera autofocus, camera Dolly zoom, which is a cool little function, and hand gestures as well. Hand gestures is just something I just threw in there. These are the four plugins we're going to be focusing on right now in this webinar. Yeah, so a little bit of a preface here. As always, we are recording this for posterity in the future. If you miss anything or if I move too fast or you want to review anything, feel free to check out the link we're going to send you. We're going to be recording this and sending everyone a link so you can review on your own time. We are broadcasting live on YouTube as well. I'm only going to be answering questions here, by the way, from the Zoom webinar. I'm not going to be answering questions that you put on YouTube, so just be aware of that. If you want to participate in the Q&A section that we already have, that we always have at the end of our webinars, then you need to have Zoom running and join our webinar via Zoom and put all your questions in the Q&A section. Okay, and I'll get to that after we're done this brief introduction and live demo. Don't put anything in the chat window unless you want to share links or something like that. Don't spam the chat window, por favor. So anyways, I think that's about enough of an introduction. That's the word I wanted to say there. Yeah, and also before we get started here, I wanted to mention we have a weekly special on the content store. I will put this link in the chat window. This is Motion Montage Volume 3, really cool set of tools that basically pre-animated props and templates you can use, super cheap as you can see here. So highly recommend grabbing this if you get a chance, like a few bucks off your Visa there. I'll throw this in the chat window like I mentioned to all panelists and attendees. All right, and after March 13th, which is tomorrow over here, it's going to be renewing to another weekly special. So make sure you always keep this link handy because we always have super good weekly specials going on in terms of content. I recommend waiting for your favorite pack to come along and just picking it up for literally dimes, less than dimes on the dollar. As you can see the prices right there. Okay, so I kind of gave you a little summary here of what's going on with the Python free plugin. So I think what we can do is we can just get started with the live demo here. So like I mentioned, what I'm going to do is I have this project already, and you can see here that we have some animation. If I just play through it really quickly here, we just have this soldier. He's getting ready to do a bunch of cool moves. This is from our Rifle Moves content pack, by the way. I won't go too much into detail on this right now because we're going to work through it throughout the webinar here. Okay, but we're going to be throwing in some camera functions using the Python plugin, like I mentioned, and we'll work through that as we move along here. All right, so let's get started first on how to install. Let's get a little bit of background first about the Python API, since this is our first webinar really focused on this. I want to preface this by saying that I'm not super familiar with Python, the programming aspect of it. I took some courses back in college, but since then, that was back, you know, when Milli Vanilli was popular, or I don't know, Michael Jackson just released his first album back in those days. Not really that long ago, but you get the point on how long ago it was that I did a course on Python. So I'm not super familiar with it, like I mentioned, haven't used it in ages. So don't ask me any technical Python related questions. But I'm going to put this page in the chat window here for you to review. The Python plugin essentially gives Python programmers the ability to create their own APIs, their own little little tool. And we're going to talk about the gesture puppet tool, which is very similar to the face puppet tool. So that's one of the little tools that has been produced using the Python API. Now, this is free to download. You can download it from this page here. And also, I wanted to mention, we're going to talk about the process of publishing your Python tools in the marketplace. So I'm going to put this, like I mentioned, this page here in the chat window for you. Let's go ahead and do that. Moonwalk. Yeah, maybe when we do, I think we have a Noitum webinar later this month, end of this month or early next month. Maybe we'll get someone to do the moonwalk during that webinar. Okay, so there's the Python review. Go through that page on your own time. There's not really too much I want to go through on this page. There's some resources here available. The iClone API page. These first three links here under Get Resources take you to the same page, basically. This is the Python wiki here. Okay, so it just talks about why Python, and it's just some kind of technical parameters that you need to know when you're programming your tools using the Python API. And here's a list of the Python tools, some of the Python tools that we've launched so far in the marketplace. You can see them right here. And basically all the different fundamental functions that you need to know in order to compile to create a Python tool for iClone. Okay, so these are just the different functions and aspects that you need to know combine them and create these different plugins, scripts, tools, whatever you want to call them. Okay, and you can see there's more information here. If you go over to getting started, just basically takes you to that link that I was at, just further down the page. Okay, so there is also some sample code you can download. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this stuff. The forum is available as well. I highly recommend checking out the forum because we have other developers there that are, publishing their own stuff. And this is where you can get information from our development team as well. Our development team takes a look at this forum frequently. So if you have any questions specifically related to, the iClone script or anything like that, please pose them in this section of the forum. Okay. And we're going to talk first about how to find the plugins in the marketplace. We won't talk about how to publish right now. If you want to learn how to publish your own plugin, feel free to put that question in the Q&A section, and I'll get to that after the webinar. And there's also a number of different samples here. I recommend checking these out down at the bottom of the page. And there's little videos that accompany each sample here that kind of shows you how to utilize each one of these tools. So the batch render folder, this is really cool for people who have like a lot of projects. Maybe like you have 5, 6, even 10 different projects. You put them all in the same folder, and then you click to use this batch render tool, and it basically renders them one after the other. So you don't have to load up the project, render, load up another project, render again. It saves you a lot of time for those of you who want to render a bunch of stuff in a row. It's a really, really useful tool. The group manager as well, grouping stuff together. If you want more details on this, you can watch the videos. I may be able to demonstrate some of this stuff, but I don't really have these two installed. But the joint-driven morph I do have installed. This is a pretty cool one that allows you to flex your character's muscles. Hand gestures is one we're going to be demonstrating at the very beginning of this live demo here. And hardware to control iClone. These ones are a little bit more complicated. We probably won't have time to go into either of these, but there are videos here that explain how to create and or how to utilize them in your project. Okay, so if you want to get your hands on any of these plugins, go to the plugin marketplace right here. Okay, you click on that plugin marketplace, and this will take you to marketplace.reallusion.com/iClone/plugin and sort by newest, I guess. Okay. And here you can see all the different plugins. There are some done by independent developers already. You can see this one done by the AnyKey, this developer right here, for example. This one here done by another developer, 3DEA. Okay. I haven't checked out most of these Python tools here, but a lot of them are done by those two developers so far. Highly encourage you, if you do have knowledge in Python, to try and get some stuff there. We have another one, Kyo. Okay, Alex Cool. So just various different developers who have published some stuff. There's all the ones that are zero DA points are done by Reallusion iClone right there. Okay, so you can mouse over and see Reallusion iClone, and you can see stuff like the group manager here, joint driven morph, etc., etc. Okay, so if you want to download one of these, the process is fairly simple. Just click on it. We'll click on Group Manager here, for example, and it'll bring us to this page here, the information page. And all you got to do is, browse through, say, hey, I like it. Let's buy it since it's $0 anyways. Okay, and just click on the buy button, and that'll stick it up there in your little cart. All right, and you can go ahead and view cart. And it'll be right here. You can delete it, you can save it for later, or you can just proceed to checkout, which is what we'll do. Okay, so step 2, here it is. It'll just summarize everything again for you, and then just go ahead and place your order. Okay, so it says, thanks for your purchase. No problem. Literally no skin off my back. And then you can go, once you've purchased it, you can go to your inventory list. Keep in mind when you go to your inventory list on the bottom, it will default by going to your content inventory. So you can see it says inventory list content up here. Okay. Now down here, it'll show all the content packs I've purchased. Okay, in my particular account. But I want to go to my plugins instead. So the best way to go to your plugins is go up here. Make sure you're logged in. By the way, you need to log into your Reallusion account here. Go up here to your account, and you can see there's the picture of me, aka Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. And you go to your inventory list. And here's your content and your plugin. So go to your inventory list plugin right here. And it'll bring up your, so they can see inventory list plugin right here. And below that, we'll have our group manager. Okay, and basically it just downloads a zip file. Okay, so you'll mouse over, or just click download. No need to mouse over it. And it'll hopefully download a zip file for us, groupmanager.zip. Okay, just find that folder. And I'm gonna just cut it out of my downloads folder here. I got so much stuff in my downloads folder. Apologies for the mess. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to find your iClone application folder. Now, for different people, this may be different. Mine is in my secondary D drive. Okay, a lot of you will have like your C drive, program files, etc. I'm just going to go to my iClone folder. So once you find your iClone application folder, which is mine right here, go into bin 64, right? And under bin 64, you'll have a folder called Open Plugin. And this is where you shall insert all of your iClone plugins. You can see I have a few already set up here, including iClone Live Link, Joint Driven Morph, Motion Live. Okay, so all you want to do is just paste your little plugin there, Group Manager. Okay, and then you want to export it into a folder. So for me, that's using 7-zip and extract to Group Manager. Okay, and you can see here it will have a Group Manager folder. And within the Group Manager folder, you'll find some, README and release notes. You can just right-click them and open with, Notepad or Notepad++ or whatever. It kind of just gives you a summary of whatever you're looking at. And release notes as well. You can open the same way. Should be able to open with the same application. Shazam! There we go. Okay, this just gives you some updated notes. Not really important. Okay, but just make sure that's in your open plugin folder and unzipped under the name of the plugin. Okay, and then if you want to install it or utilize it in your iClone project, we won't do that right now. We won't be using Group Manager, but if you want to, you go up here to Script and go to Load Python. Okay, and then you need to load your Python script. In this case, I'm going to be using Group Manager. Okay, so you just want to load the main.py generally. Okay. And what that does is that normally will load up your Python script. In this case, we don't really have stuff set up. And then it should appear under plugins. You go to Python samples here and load up Group Manager. Okay, so it'll appear in the Group Manager after you've installed it, after you've just basically gone through the process that I went through there. So just repeat the same process for every single tool. Okay, unzip it into that folder, the open plugins folder, and load the script from the script file menu here. I'll load Python, and then it will appear in Python samples. Okay, and that's really all there is to it. That's how you all these little tools, okay, little plugins. And that's it. Okay, so that's the process to install. From this point on, we're going to go into the live demo, and we're going to kind of demonstrate how to utilize these different camera tools throughout this project. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just kind of, you saw a little bit of the project before. If I just scroll through the timeline here, you can see we have a soldier in the back. Basically what he does is just a bunch of ninja moves and, goes forward and finally decides to shoot his weapon, blam, 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 blam. And then does another roll and so on and so forth. Okay. Nothing too important about the animation. I just pre-did this animation because I don't want to spend time doing the animation. I want to focus on the camera work. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the gesture puppet tool. All right. And to do this, I'm going to go to my character. All right. So important to do here, an important step to take here rather, is I'm going to press F3 and go into my timeline. And what I want to do is I want to see my character's motion tracks. Okay, we're going to just only see the motion track here. And I'm going to zoom out. Again, you can zoom out by holding the Alt key and scrolling your mouse wheel in the timeline, just like this. Okay, so you can see we have the first clip here is, basically this is just a pose. Okay, you see he's not moving. But right here, from here to here, I have like a little movement, okay? And the motion layer tool, you can see the motion layer. Don't worry about that right now, it's not important. But we have him sitting here with his thumbs. We're just motionless here for a good 350 frames or so, or 300 frames or so. Okay, and this is the area where I want to insert my my gestures. I'm going to use the gesture puppet tool to create some hand gestures in this area here. Okay, so what I would recommend doing in this case, if you're focusing on one little area of your project, is to take your project length sliders here, these little green triangles, and move them to the starting point that you want your gestures to start taking place and the ending point. Okay, so I'm going to drag these ones all the way in. You can see them right here. Now, important is that we don't do any we don't do any puppeting over the next clip. Okay, we want to restrict our puppeting to this area. Very important, because if you do it too far, it's going to erase the following clip, which is this one here, this roll to shoot. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to the first frame of my new project length, and we're going to load up our, we're going to go to plugins, Python samples, and hand gestures puppeteering. Okay, that's going to bring up our hand gestures puppeteering panel. Okay, it's similar to, just think of it as the face puppet tool. Okay, so here we go. We press the P hotkey to stop our stop our preview. Now let's zoom in a little bit closer on our character here. Focus on his hands. You can press the space key to start or stop recording. Fairly simple. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is press the P key. Okay, and you can see if I go to different, if I mouse over to different areas here of my panel, it'll create just different hand gestures. And it's, you can see it's looping. Okay, so that's why I have this project length as short as it is. It's just looping back and forth. Okay, and you can see the thumbs up, the pointing, and so on and so forth. Okay, if you press the B hotkey, it'll blend between various, you can blend between, different gestures. Okay, just like this. Not a huge difference between these two. I like to use the multi-gesture one just because it creates more of a natural transition. If you're using multiple gestures like we're going to be using multiple gestures. So the first thing I'm going to do is test the timing of this. Okay, we're going to use 4 different gestures. So 1, 2, 3, like Roger, Roger, go, go, go. Okay, and then we're going to stop our recording. Okay, now important here is when you stop your preview, you want to be over the first gesture that you want to use. So right now I'm over the fist gesture. Okay, I'm going to press the P hotkey, and you can see that little green dot remains over the fist gesture there. And that way, when I press space to start, it's going to start that gesture, and I can move to the other gestures here. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and record it by pressing space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Okay, and then press space to stop. And you can see it created another puppet clip here. Okay, and what I can do is I can basically close down our hand gestures puppeteering panel right now. And we can see the gestures right here. So fist, point, hang loose, peace sign, and point again, and then back to the fist. Okay, so that's the gestures that I made. And it's all in that puppet clip. And after the puppet clip, after he's finished that, he'll go back into the rifle pose. Okay, holding his rifle. Okay, now if I want to add a little bit of pizzazz onto this, what I can do is I can add on some body puppet. I can use the body puppet tool on my character. And the way I can do that is by going over to our animation tab with our character selected and going over here to the direct puppet tool, okay, under body, direct puppet tool. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my character's left hand, select the left hand, and we can just use screen-based movement. It doesn't really matter, okay? I'm going to preview this and show you what it is. So if I preview, basically I can move my character's arm around like this, just to make it seem a bit more realistic, like he's emphasizing each gesture as he moves his arm like this, okay? Okay, so the same process basically. All I want to do is record, and when I'm ready to record, I'll go ahead and puppet. Again, I don't want to puppet beyond frame 350 here, otherwise it's going to erase the clip afterwards. Okay, so when I'm ready, I can just press space. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and then stop. Okay, and you can see that extended my puppet clip a little bit. And what happens here is now we have the character. If I close my direct puppet tool down, now we have that every gesture, he's pushing his arm forward. Okay, and then back into the prone pose right here. Okay, so we're good to go from there. The next step here is basically, that's just the quick and simple animation that I wanted to show you at first. So from now on, we're going to focus on strictly camera movement. Okay, so right now we're going to extend our project link slider again, like this. As long as it was, I forget how long it was. Now we can zoom out. So now we don't need to focus on the character anymore. Let's just zoom out a little bit. Bing, boom, bang. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so from this angle, he'll just do his little, gesture. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, if I find that if I press F3 and I find that those transitions are too short, like from here to here, you can see it's really short. If I play back, just goes like really quick. I can extend this transition area like this. Okay, and then if I click and drag in my timeline, he'll take a longer period to get his arm back into place there. Okay, and at the beginning is the same thing here. Okay, I can click and drag that transition area. Okay, and then if I press play. Okay, there you go. It looks a bit more natural now. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our camera work. And the cool thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring in like a sniper sight rifle, or a sniper sight, I guess. Okay, by going to my scene manager, there is an image layer on this project. Let's just move over a little bit. You can see right here. Let's make that visible. Okay, so you can see here we have this cool little sniper sight. Okay, the scope we're looking through right now. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to use this to follow our character moving around. Now, the camera follow plugin, okay, so we've got a Python sample, or Python samples down here, smooth camera follow, very, very useful tool, but it only follows props, okay? So what we need to do, or props or dummies or whatever it is, what we need to do is we need to import a prop. So we need to create a dummy. And the best way to do that is just go up here to create and create a primitive shape and create a box, okay? And that box is going to appear over here. Shazam. Let's get rid of our sniper sights for now. So it's distracting. Okay, so you can see our box right there. Just make sure it's selected. I can press the W hotkey to move it up a little bit so you can see it there. You can press the R hotkey to scale it down. And what we're going to do is we're going to link this box to our character's head. Okay, So the easiest way to get it over there, the fastest and easiest way is just to use this tool up here. You can use Align To or the Control L hotkey. Okay, just click on that and then click on our character, Align to X, Y, and Z, and boom, he's basically there. Okay, and then we can press the W hotkey again, move it up. We can press the F hotkey, which I always use, very important. Press the F hotkey to focus on the object. Okay, that way we're a lot closer here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it to somewhere a little bit below his head here. Okay, don't worry too much about rotation and all that stuff. The size doesn't matter either. We'll just kind of place it right here, covering his face. Okay, now no need to worry, this is not going to cover his face. We're going to make it invisible in just a moment here. But with that prop selected, I'm going to right click it and just select link and link to, and then we're going to link it to our character, the head more specifically. Okay, and you can see here it is under props in the scene manager. We'll just make it invisible. All right, it still exists, but it's just invisible to our naked eye. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to, actually before I do that, I need to have it visible. Whoops. Because we're going to set up our camera. Now, important to note here is the axis of this prop, because we're going to just create a camera now. Create up here, you can create a camera. And we're just going to call this camera, double click and call it follow. Okay. And so right now we're piloting the follow camera. And I'm just going to go to like a distance like this, maybe a good sniper distance. Okay, we can click our character and use him as a rotation base. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to go up here to plugins, Python samples, and smooth camera follow. Okay, now this is very important right here. If you add your camera after you open this, you need to press refresh. Okay, we don't need to do that in this case. We're going to control one camera. We only have one camera in the scene, and it's our follow camera right here. Okay, after that, we need to select what we're going to follow, and it's a prop. You can see prop in parentheses. And we're going to select our box. Okay, you can rename that to dummy or whatever you want. In this case, I'll just leave it as box. There's a couple of different parameters. One is frame delay and one is tautness. Basically, these dictate how close your follow is. Frame delay will just leave a couple of frames before it starts to follow. The tautness will be the stiffness basically of the follow of the camera. Okay, so we have that box selected. Now, here is very important, the offset. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to copy the values of our follow camera. So we need to manually do this. So what we need to do is we need to offset our camera from our prop, okay? And with our box selected here, you can see the value on the y-axis is -1000. And that means it's roughly, well, exactly -1000 units backwards from the direction this green arrow is pointing, okay? -1000 units this way. So relatively close to where our camera is, okay? Now this will probably be improved in the future, but for now, this is what we need to do. And our height is gonna be 350 units above the box, okay? On the blue axis, the blue Z axis, okay? So hopefully that's clear. Let's do a couple of examples here. I'm gonna use this value of maybe like -700, okay, on the negative y-axis, and we'll leave our z-axis at maybe 200. And then we're going to go ahead and press setup. So what this does is this is going to create a smooth follow for our camera throughout the duration of the project. So keep this in mind. If you have this camera selected, it's going to be throughout the duration of the entire project for that particular camera. So you can't change a camera from a follow cam to a different one. Okay, so this is our, you can see the view is a bit different. It's -700 and +200. So it's a little bit higher, okay? And now it's following him smoothly like this. We want to use our, get our image layer in there, okay? And let's make our box invisible. Okay, so what we're doing is we're aiming directly at the character's head. So we play back. He's going to do his gestures there. And you can see follows. Just like that. Okay. So tempting to take a headshot. Okay, But if we think we want to change those values a little bit, let's go back to frame 1 here. And let's load the plugin. I guess it kind of disappeared there. Smooth camera follow. What we're going to do is do the same thing, but this time we're going to change our values here. I'm going to change it to like maybe negative 900. Okay, a little bit further away and a little bit higher up. So let's go like maybe 350 like we had before, and then we'll go ahead and set up. Okay, now make sure you do this at frame 1. Oops. Oh, we need to select refresh this here. Let's just refresh anyways. I think we opened up a second instance of this accidentally. Let's see if this works. Oh, I need to reset it again. Let's see if this works this time. Okay, this should work okay. Open it up again, box. And let's use those values we have there. Negative 1,000, 350. I think maybe negative 900 is good. And let's just set that up. There we go. Now it's just processing again. Now it's going to be further away and a little bit higher up. Okay, maybe like where a sniper would be perched. So again, this tool is very useful for if you're using a camera to express the perspective of a single person who's just kind of stationary, but they're following someone else, like stalking them or something like that. This is a pretty good one to use. Okay. I won't bother adjusting the frame delay and the tautness because it may not be too visible on the webinar. But like I mentioned before, the frame delay is just how long it takes before the camera begins to follow after your prop moves, excuse me. And the tautness is just kind of like how stiff the camera movement is. Okay, pretty simple stuff. Let's just go ahead and close that down. So that's the basic starting point there. That's our camera follow. Okay. Really cool, really useful tool. You can, go through your whole process here and yada, yada. Okay. So that's the first one's just camera follow. The second camera we're going to have is autofocus. And at the end, I'm going to put all these cameras together into kind of like a sequence. Okay. Let's make our image layer invisible now. And let's create another camera. Create camera. Let's call this one autofocus. Okay. Autofocus. Now we are piloting autofocus, and we're going to set this camera up behind this barrel we have strategically placed in our scene here. Okay, have this barrel in this metal grid kind of strategically placed right here. So this is going to be like maybe another soldier, or another like person, enemy combatant who is, secretly watching our soldier as he does his little dance around, his little ninja moves. Okay, so we'll use like maybe a viewpoint like this. Now, what I might want to do in this case as well is I might want to adjust the properties of my camera. So let's go over to the modify panel. Very useful tip here coming up. If you have anything selected in your scene, like, see it says prop drum 1, this is the prop I have selected, I have my character selected. If I press the U hotkey, it's going to automatically go back to the last camera that I had selected, which is autofocus. Okay. So it brings up a whole bunch of different parameters. Instead of going to your content manager and selecting the camera, you can just press the U hotkey and it'll toggle between soldier and camera, avatar and camera. Okay. Again, that's the U hotkey I'm using there. Very useful little tip. Use it all the time. Okay. So let's get to work on our camera properties here. The first thing we want to do is we're going to set a depth of field. Okay. Because autofocus is all about depth of field. I'm going to activate my depth of field here, and you can see it automatically blurs out the foreground. It has a preset, but I'm just going to go ahead and pick a target here. I'm going to pick my soldier, of course, and when I pick my soldier, you can see that the background Humvee kind of blurs out a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just show you these parameters here, the transition regions and the blur strengths. We're going to deselect lock here. These correspond with the parameters that we'll see in our plugin in just a moment here. But first of all, I'm going to show you the DOF regions. Okay, so the DOF regions here, basically everything that's red is going to be in focus in our camera. So you can see my near transition region is pretty small, pretty short, 200 centimeters or 200 units, whatever you want to call it. If I increase that, notice that this red region will start to approach us further, okay? And that means that there's going to be more in focus. Okay, you can't see it right now. I'll show you without the highlights a little bit later here. So that's near transition region. And the far transition region is basically how far everything in focus is going to be. So do we really want the Humvee in focus? Then we can increase that far transition region. We don't want to be in too in focus. We can really take that farther down. So if I just remove this, for example, the near transition region, if I increase it, you can even put almost the, basically just look at the foreground here on the concrete, it'll become more in focus. Okay, whereas if we decrease that, the foreground will become less and less in focus. Okay, just keep that in mind. I like the value we had, maybe 200 before. And the far transition region, if we want to make that really small, it'll just blur out the Humvee in the background, but that doesn't really look super natural, very natural, I guess I should say. But so let's just take that up to a level like this. And then of course you can increase the blur strength for near, like this. Okay, less blur strength, more blur strength. Okay, you can also increase the blur strength for far, for distance as well. That's basically it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on our autofocus here. We're going to go to plugins one more time, Smart Gallery, or rather not Smart Gallery, Python samples, and use camera autofocus. Okay, now for this one, very important to note, we have auto key on right here. Now, auto key on, at this point, I recommend it's okay to have it on, but you only want to have it on when you're ready to put a keyframe down, okay? And I'll show you why in just a moment here. So when auto key is on, whatever we select in our scene, like the barrel, for example, it's going to focus on that, okay? If we select the Humvee, it's going to focus on the Humvee. If we select our soldier, it's going to focus on our soldier. Well, let's go into our camera track here in the timeline again by pressing F3. We're going to close down our soldier. We don't need him selected right now. We're just going to load up our camera, okay, which is over down here. There we go, autofocus camera. And I'm going to show you here. We're going to take a look at depth of field, and that's it, and transform slightly, okay? I also want to make sure that we have a slightly different focal length for here. I'm going to use a value of maybe like 80, because that kind of gives us a kind of a closer, more intense sort of look viewpoint of this character. We can talk about that later on as well. Okay, so right now we have this. Again, I'm going to use autofocus, select my character, and then we're going to just press, if we take these off for now, we don't want to add keyframes. If we have these on sometimes, and again, this is sometimes, if we click and drag, it'll create automatic keyframes like that. Okay, if I click and drag in the timeline. And this is not something that we want, okay? So this is why generally I recommend having these off. If you click and drag in the timeline like I always do, I recommend having these off until you're ready to set your automatic focal distance. So I'm going to click and drag on these and just delete them. I'm going to remove these. We're going to press F8, okay, which is going to bring up our mini viewport here, because we need to know when our character moves behind the barrel. Okay, so right here you can see he moves, and we need to know when he finishes his roll, which is about here. Okay, we'll just say it's right here. I don't want to bother moving the preview camera right now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create 3 keyframes. Right here, we're going to have a keyframe. So we're going to use auto distance, auto range again, and we're going to select our character. And that's going to create a keyframe in the depth of field track. Then we're going to deselect these. And as our character is in the middle of his roll, so about here, what we're going to do is we're going to enable this again, and then we're going to select our barrel right here. Okay. And I'm going to just deselect these again. And as he finishes his roll, which is probably around here, we're going to move our camera. Okay, we're going to move it a little bit up like this. almost like we're peeping at the soldier now through the grills of this metal grating here. Okay, now that added a transform key, but it did not add a depth of field key because these two are disabled. So what I want to do here is I also want to make sure that we copy and paste that first transform keyframe. Right click and copy it all the way over here. Otherwise that transition is going to take a long time. So right here, we're going to paste it when our character starts moving. Right click and paste in the transform track. Okay, so there we go. And we'll maybe keep it a little bit further because as he starts rolling, he'll start rolling and then our camera will start to follow. And now you can see the focus goes from the character right here. If I click and drag, it slowly transitions to the canister or the barrel of gasoline in front of us. And then here, we want to focus on the character again. But what I want to do here is I want to maintain this focus on the gasoline can until he basically comes to a stop. So right here, I'm going to enable my auto range, auto distance again. We're going to click one more time on the gasoline canister, okay, just to add that keyframe right there. And then we disable it. And a few frames later, we're going to enable it one more time and click on our character. All right. And like I mentioned before, these are the blur settings you can adjust as well if you need to. We're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so now what we have is we have the transition here from the barrel, focusing on the character. Okay, pretty cool. So let's play this back really quickly. You can see focusing on the character, focusing on the gasoline. Just a very subtle effect, but very powerful. Just very much more immersive when you're using your camera work. Okay, so let's go ahead and then right here we can do this process again. So let's go ahead and we're focusing on the character. Maybe at this point here, we'll copy that keyframe. Again, you can do this instead of autofocus as well. Let's maybe at this point here, we'll paste it. And then we're going to move our camera. As he moves out of the shot, we're going to move our camera up to here. Maybe to this position right here. Okay. And then if we want to add that depth of field keyframe in there, we can do so as well. Right here. Click on our gasoline canister there. And then this frame here, we'll click on our soldier. And there you go. Okay, it just automatically adds those keys. So focusing on the gasoline canister. We can have that focus last as long as we want, simply by copying or pasting the keyframe, or we can simply just add these on and focus one more time and turn them off. And then it'll focus on the character at this point here. Okay. So that whole sequence there, basically focusing on different things at different times, it just allows you to be a lot more immersive with your camera work. Another thing I would recommend doing is adding transition curves to your cameras as well. So from this point, from our first camera movement to the second camera movement, where our character is over here, I'm going to right click on the second keyframe, and we're going to go to transition curve presets. Okay, and what I would recommend for this one is maybe a smooth transition curve. Okay, because a smooth transition curve kind of slows up at the beginning and slows up at the end. Okay, and that would be more of a natural kind of movement from one point to the next when you're kind of tracking the soldier's movements. Okay, and then here we would probably keep this transform keyframe right here, copy it, and keep that until he starts moving. So paste right here. And then start moving this way. And, I would recommend maybe doing the same thing here as well, just a transition curve using the smooth. Okay, and that's our second camera function. Let's go to the third one here, which is going to be the dolly zoom. Okay, so the dolly zoom is pretty cool. We're going to create a separate camera for that as well. So we're going to go up here to create camera, and let's close down our timeline for now. And let's go to our scene manager and find our camera. Let's just rename it to Dolly Zoom. Dolly Zoom, right? And this camera is going to basically create some sort of a, when our character is focused right here, he's firing, we're going to make it really dramatic. Okay, so we're going to have this camera look directly at the character like this and have him, fill up most of the screen. Now I'm positioning all of this at frame 789. It doesn't really matter in this case. What I want to do is press F3 and go into the timeline. I don't want to move this camera beforehand. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to just use object related track in this case. Let's get rid of our autofocus and again press that U hotkey. Oops. But we need to have it selected first. Dolly zoom. Okay, and then character. Okay, and then we can toggle back and forth using that U hotkey. Okay, so the zoom, dolly zoom, we're going to open up the transform track and just position it basically this frame for the entire duration of the project. Okay, so we'll just do it somewhere back there. Doesn't really matter. We can right click and copy that and paste it at frame 1, whatever. Okay, so it'll just be there for the duration of the project. Okay. So at this point, what we want to do here, the dolly zoom is really simple and easy. To do the dolly zoom using camera and lens transitions, it's a lot harder. It's not too difficult, but again, it takes probably at least 5 minutes to get it right. What we can do here is we can actually, as our character's shooting, and our camera's at this frame right here, what I need to do is go up here to plugins. We'll load up our camera dolly zoom, and you can see right here, it has our main camera selected as dolly zoom, which is the camera we have that we want. We need to select a target object. Okay, nothing is selected currently. We need to select our character, soldier. Okay, you can see it will select soldier right there. And we need to change, it'll automatically set our focal length, okay, because the soldier is about 80 units away from the camera right here. Now, how long do we want this dolly zoom to last? Let's go ahead and take a look at 100 frames first, okay? It shows here the target focal length. Don't really worry about that. Our key time offset is the one to worry about because this is how long our dolly zoom is going to last. Let's get rid of this right now, and go back to our camera. Our dolly zoom here. Need to load it up in the tracks. There we go. Okay, so we have this. Let's go ahead and load up the lens and depth of field tracks. So dolly zoom uses both lens and depth of field transitions. Okay, so you'll see both these tracks populate as soon as we enable our dolly zoom. Let's go ahead and do that. We can close down the soldier track just to make things a bit easier. So all you need to do is have your object selected that you want to zoom on. Okay, so your soldier right here, and then just select key dolly zoom. That's how easy it is. Okay. And you can see what happens is basically it creates a sort of really dramatic zoom like this, where the background, I'm just going to get rid of that sound for now. I believe this would be under vocal volume, possibly music volume. Okay. So you can see it creates a really dramatic zoom. And this is achieved again by dollying the camera slightly and changing the focal length slightly simultaneously, okay? And changing the zoom simultaneously. So again, this only goes for 100 frames. So if we play back, just like this, but then our character keeps shooting. He keeps shooting for about 300 frames. So about frame 788 to frame like 1050 or something like that. rounded up to 300 frames. So if you don't like that last Dolly zoom that you did, just click on clear Dolly zoom, and that'll clear everything out. Okay, we're going to start from that frame again. This time we're going to change our key frames to 300 instead. Okay, and again we need to select our soldier as our target object here, and key Dolly zoom. And now you'll see it'll last for a longer period of time and more dramatic. And you can change the focal length and the distance as well to make it a more dramatic zoom. But we're just going to use that for now since we're kind of running short on time here. And I want to combine these cameras into a sequence. All right, so there we have it. We have this Dolly zoom right there. Dramatic as our character is firing his weapon. And we have all three camera movements that we need. So that's basically utilizing the Python scripts from the next 5 minutes or so. I'm just going to basically combine these cameras and switch them around really quickly. We're also going to switch the sniper sights on and off, okay? Because unfortunately, image layers aren't able to be only put on single cameras. They're put on all the cameras. So what I'm going to do here is first go up to switch. Okay, and we're going to, in our project, use the switcher track. Okay, you can see the switcher track right here. What I'm going to do is right click on the switcher track at frame 1. And from our camera list, we're going to choose the follow camera. Okay, again, this is the camera from up above. We're going to enable our image layer. Okay, and let's play back however long this takes. Or a sniper kind of looking at the guy from above. Actually, no, we wanted to do the autofocus first, rather. So we'll go camera list and choose autofocus instead. This is our first camera right here. Okay. So this one, we're not going to have a sniper image layer. So what we're going to do for is just select the image layer actually, and we're going to go into the modify tab for materials for the image layer, and we're just going to change our opacity to 0. Okay, so our opacity is down. I missed it. There we go. All right. So if I have my object-related track selected, we go to our material. It's going to create a keyframe there in the opacity. Okay, material settings for our image layer. And let's go ahead and play it back. Don't worry about this. It seems like we need to probably delete all this stuff in our image layer there. Okay, so this is, we're going to keep up to here. This is where we're going to keep the autofocus camera until, and then we'll switch from here. We're going to switch to the Dolly zoom. Okay, so again, we're going to right click again and switcher track, go to camera list and click on Dolly zoom. Okay, and so then we play back for Dolly zoom. And then bam, here's our dramatic firing. And from this point, right after that, we're going to switch to our follow cam. So here we'll right click, camera list, go to follow. And here's where we want to enable our image layer opacity. So we'll go one frame prior to this, okay, like this previous. And with our image layer selected, we're going to go over here and just take the opacity to 1, doesn't really matter. It'll add a keyframe anyways, as long as you move that slider, it'll move create a keyframe right here. And then it'll go to the next frame, which is switched over to this camera. And this camera, we're going to have our opacity at 100. Okay, so what we did there is from here to here, we changed the opacity from 0 to 100 to change the cameras when we change the cameras. All right, so that's basically the whole project. I don't think we missed anything there. Let's go ahead and press F3 to go out of our timeline and let's get a better look at things here. So if I play back, we're going to have our autofocus. Let's bring up our sound. Okay, so we have our autofocus first. Actually, at the beginning, we could even have a gesture cam. Let's go ahead and do that really quick since we have about like 2 minutes here, 3 minutes. I'm going to create another camera real quick. And let's call this one gesture cam. Gesture cam. And we're going to change to gesture cam. And let's create a dramatic zoom in on our characters. We don't want to have depth of field selected here, by the way. We don't really need to have depth of field selected. Let's go press the, go to our modify tab. And again, press the U hotkey. Goes to our gesture cam here. And let's disable our depth of field here. Okay, so this frame, we're going to have a dramatic zoom in for our gesture cam. So let's just zoom in closely, like that. And let's have a little bit of a, oops, let's use image or object related track here and go back to our gesture cam. Oops. It seems like we need to select it from the content manager or the scene manager again. Gesture cam. There we go. Open up our transform track. And we can just create a really quick transition curve, right click, transition curve preset, and have a dramatic, let's see, it starts off slow and it'll accelerate as it gets closer. There we go. So starting off slow. As it gets closer, it moves faster. And you can increase that, the strength of that acceleration as well if you want. Down here, emphasize it. All right, we'll just go ahead and keep it like that. And then at this frame, we'll go to our switcher and we'll switch it to autofocus. First one we need to make sure is gesture cam. There we go. Okay, and then we'll go up here to our switcher and switch. Okay, now hopefully that fixed everything. So frame one, we have our guy. Let's dramatic zoom in on the character and then to the autofocus. The autofocus zoom. Dolly zoom. Switch over to our sniper follow cam right here. Okay, so that's really about all there is to it. I just kind of wanted to show you guys, and he falls down at the end. I didn't bother getting someone to shoot him, but yeah, that's the whole process there. And that's, I use that pretty often, you know, in projects, especially the follow cam. Again, it's useful for like stalker type scenarios. I use that very often. Autofocus is very useful as well, just to create, you know, very, very easy transitions from one point to the next. Now, with the autofocus, I should mention as well that it will likely be fixed. The keyframe issue there, where if you click and drag in the timeline, it's going to automatically add keyframes. That'll likely be a fix in the near future here. But that only happens, like I mentioned, sometimes. It happens about 50-50 with me. So there's something strange in the neighborhood that needs to be taken a look at there. Yeah, but that's basically the whole webinar, the whole process there. Any questions you guys have, put those in the Q&A panel there, and I will get to those right now. And we have about 10-15 minutes to just run through your questions here about Python, about iClone, about Reillusion in general. You can ask about me as well. Anyways, okay, so go to the first question here from Dawn Evelyn. A side note separate from these Python plugins, is the iClone Unreal Live Link plugin updated to Unreal 4.25? Currently, it's at 4.24. To answer that question, we have not yet updated to 4.25. I think that was just released, was it 1 or 2 weeks ago now? So we haven't had a chance to update to the 4.25. So if you're using Live Link in your project, stick with 4.24 for now. okay, because that's what's compatible with our LiveLink plugin. All right. I'm not sure. I don't have an ETA on when that will be resolved, but yeah, it should be. Normally, it's about a month or so after the latest launch, latest update that we're able to follow along. Okay, so yeah, Peter Podesser mentions the F key is not really focused on prop. It's a hotkey, or sorry, it's a front view hotkey. Yeah, so that's kind of a good point. Technically, the F hotkey is not to focus on a prop, but what it does is it just brings basically gives like a really close-up view of any prop in your scene. I use F. It's just focus in the back of my mind, but it probably means front, because there's basically your home row is different keys. Your home row is different focuses, different zooms of your camera. So if I go to my preview here, for example, let's bring off our image layer for now. If I select this Humvee, for example, I press F, I guess it's going to have a front view. So there's A, which is rear view, S, front view, D, F. So A, S, D, F basically are just the different views of your prop at different angles there. And then G is an overhead view, by the way, of any prop or character. G is always an overhead view. H, not even sure what H is, probably home. And then there's J. I don't know the technical terms for these hotkeys, but there's K and then there's L. They're all available if you go up to your in your online manual. I think they're there in the. Since we're focusing on camera movement, I might as well show you guys this. Show this to everyone. Keyboard shortcut table. Global shortcuts. Where are they here? Yeah. Oh. Should be somewhere down here. Yeah, here we go. Quick camera positioning. Okay, left, right, back, front, top, face, all. And home key is 45 degrees. There you go. Those are the official terms for them, by the way. Yeah, I use them all the time. I just use the F key most of all because generally I like to position my camera in a customized position. Okay, let's go to, Peter Podesser actually mentioned as well, it'd be nice if iClone had an auto key button for popcorn effects. That would be super cool. Maybe someone can actually create a plugin for that. That'd be awesome. There's an auto key button for popcorn effects. Possibly our team might be on that in the near future. We'll see. All right, next question here is from Toby Cook. If I made my own plugin, can I change existing tools in iClone or only add new ones? For example, could I change the display name of the tools? Could I add buttons to tools that bring up explanations, etc., from within the actual tool interface? From my understanding, because I've obviously never created a plugin myself, you cannot change the name of the tools, but basically the different components of the tools are all available. So basically, I mean, you name your own tool, essentially. You name your own plugin, but you're using components from different tools in iClone. So for example, if we go into like the API section here, I kind of briefly summarized it earlier. Something like the camera dolly zoom uses functions like object type, message box. Okay, so message box just brings up the message box. That's your panel. You need to select an object type. Basically, the item lister is just the code, the function that lists all the items. Dialog callback, local move. Okay. These are all just different, and you can see here, for example, if you wanted to find, let's see, for example, what's a good one? 3D look at. Okay, so 3D look at is a function within iClone. Okay, that allows your camera to look at something. Okay, and all the code for this is found right here. So if we go to click on 3D look at, Shazam, right there. Okay, these are all basically the different functions here that make up the look at function, look at feature, look at tool, whatever you want to call it in iClone. So again, look at is if we go over here to modify attributes. We have a look at camera. So basically that's just that function there in iClone. All right. Hopefully that answers that question. You can change the name of the tools, not our tools, but you can use all the components from our tools to create your own. Basically, copy and paste the code into your own code. And yes, you can bring up buttons that provide explanations from within the interface. So if you want to, have like a question mark on the tool, I think maybe some of ours do have that. Perhaps not, but okay, here you go. So question mark right here. Yeah. Let's see, what's the camera? So if you want to have this in your own plugin, very easy to do. And there's just look at the wiki for how to be able to do this. Okay. A couple of warning signs. All right, so a question from Helene. I have about 20 plugins in the open plugin folder. I have 2 Python samples in the script menu. One has 1 plugin, the other has 4 plugins. Yeah, I think this is a bug that we've just recently encountered. If you may have noticed, my own iClone has this same issue. So, for example, like if I go to plugins here, I have a Python's folder, Python samples over here, and I have a Python sample down here. Smooth camera follow is the only one that appears here for some reason. And up here are all the other ones. So I'm not sure. I'm not a technical guy. I'm not on the development team, so I can't really explain why it is that way. Yeah, hopefully we'll get that fixed up in the near future. For now, it's just unfortunately something that we have to deal with. That's why we have QA, and we have users like you who are catching bugs left and right and letting us know about them. I believe the team already knows about it, so just so you're aware. And if you want to report any bugs, by the way, in these plugins, please, we highly encourage you to report any bugs that you encounter. Place those in the forum, and the forum link that's available off the main page there. So this forum link right here. Please, if you have come across any issues, place them right here, because our development team monitors this forum, and they'll interact with you as well. Yeah, Pete mentions here the Dolly zoom was made famous by Alfred Hitchcock, film director Alfred Hitchcock. I do believe that's correct. Possibly, can't remember if it was Birds or Psycho, but I do remember watching a documentary once where they did mention that Alfred Hitchcock made that Dolly zoom effect, created that Dolly zoom effect, was the first one to utilize it. So if you're familiar with Alfred Hitchcock, you can probably guess that that effect is generally used to increase intensity of some occurrence on the screen. Okay, so question from D. Abbott. How do you change your workspace to render to vertical, specifically for uploading projects to Instagram Live? Okay, so if you want to render like a vertical camera, you have to go up to your render settings. So go to render and render video. I believe there's a preset here for, you can see under output size, change your frame size. I believe there's a iPad portrait or iPhone portrait. Okay, so that'll be your typical iPhone resolution there. And iPad's a bit different there as well. Yeah, but generally, you'll keep 1080p is what I generally keep things at. So if you want to output that size, just select the frame size right there. Fairly simple. I think I need to go into more detail on that. Okay, let's go to the next question here. Jerry asks, will you be doing webinars on the rest of the APIs for Python programmers? I don't think I'm qualified to do a webinar on the technicalities of Python, since I'm a newbie to Python myself. But we may have someone be able to do a webinar specifically on the technicalities of creating a Python plugin in the future. That's a fairly interesting proposal, actually, and we'll probably take a look into that. It'll maybe me and someone else, one of the development team possibly. But yeah, if you want to learn more about Python, the technical aspects of the Python plugin, please feel free to put that in the feedback form. Again, we are emailing you after this a feedback form. If you fill out that feedback form, you get a 10% discount for the content store. So make sure you fill that out. Give us your feedback. And if you want to see more webinars in the future about the technical aspects of Python, I highly encourage you to fill that in and let us know. Okay, so yeah, Peter mentions here it'll be nice if Python panels could be docked. Definitely one for the forums. That would be really nice if they could be docked as well. That's something that's this is basically just launched to the public in the last few months here. So it's still a fairly new phenomenon in the iClone universe, the Python plugin. But yeah, it'll steadily be improved going into the future here for sure. This is one thing we really want to open up the iClone API to all of our users. We have some really creative users here who have been asking us for a while. We want to make our own tools. Can you open up the API for us? So now we've finally done it. Maybe having these Python plugins be able to giving them docking ability is the next step. Okay, next question from Ken. I had 2 plugins I would like to create for iClone, but the API offers no access to the preview camera or geometry level vertex data. I can't comment on that specifically because I haven't done much research into what we do offer in our wiki. But Ken, I would encourage you to write that in the forums, or provide that in the feedback that we're going to email you, the feedback form, because if that's the preview camera is something that should really be available with the API. If that's not available, that's something that we really need to work on, and definitely geometry level vertex data as well. It seems like that should be available, geometry level vertex data, due to the joint morph plugin. But yeah, if you can't find that, just make sure you put that in the forums, because we're looking to always improve the product, and hopefully we can get that available for you in the future. Law asks, is there any type of RAM preview for rendering short portions of a video you're working on? I assume you're talking about like a RAM preview, like in After Effects or something like that, or Premiere. We don't really have that in iClone, not that I know of. I've never needed to utilize that. Generally, if I'm experiencing lag in my project, I'll just change the quality of my camera to like quick mode or something, for example. So yeah, if you have like if your project is very heavy on physics, or there's lots of soft cloth simulation, or lots of materials, substance materials there that need to be processed, you may experience some lag. In that case, the best idea right now is just to change your viewport resolution to quick mode or even minimal, or you can customize it as well, just to make your functionality a little bit faster in the project. But to answer your question, I don't think we have I can confirm that there's probably no RAM preview available, because I've never heard about that, or I've never utilized it outside of video editing software, or other 3D software as well, heavy duty stuff. Okay, the next question is from Eddie. Instead of making a long script, is it possible to make simple macros? I don't really know, because like I said, I've never really put together a Python script myself, or in regards to creating a plugin. But I do believe it may be possible. But again, you have to ask that question in the forum. You're asking the wrong guy, and the technical stuff is a little bit over my head. Although I'm basically more of like a hello world kind of guy these days. It's been a long time. It's like you haven't played basketball for like 10 years and then you just kind of try and start up again, you'll get air balls every time and have to do a lot of review. But sorry about that, Eddie. Can't really answer that specifically, but it's a good question for the forum. Okay. Something Peter here mentioning about the H key. Not sure why that may be an issue there, but maybe a technical issue to take a look at. Okay, question from Brad. Do the plugins to download show in my content screen, or do I have to repurchase to get that plugin link? I've already gone through and purchased the free plugins a while back, but I'm not seeing them in my content window to download. I think, Brad, you may be talking about your smart gallery. The plugins won't appear in your smart gallery, so just be aware of that. They won't appear in your content manager either. They will only appear in the plugins list up there. And like I talked about at the beginning of the webinar, the only way to get to those is through your inventory. So again, if you're not familiar with the marketplace interface, make sure you're logged in, go up to your account, inventory list, and plugin. And this is where you find all of the plugins that you've downloaded. All right. Hopefully that's clear as mud. Oh, great. Thank you for your compliments, Dan. I'm glad I've been able to help you with the tutorials over the years. Hopefully you're not too annoyed at hearing my voice day after day. It's really annoying. I think for most people, it's really annoying to hear yourself being or after you've recorded, you're hearing your own voice on a video or an audio recording. It just makes you kind of cringe sometimes. Anywho, let's go to the next question here from Helene. How do I get my other Python scripts to show in the menus? So this may be, because I did show the correct process to get your Python scripts to show in the menus. You may be experiencing a bug, Helene. So what I would recommend is putting your bug report in the forum, and we will get to that as soon as possible. We'll probably even have possibly have someone contact you from the development team via the forum, and they'll be able to help you out that way. So apologies for any inconvenience you're experiencing with the plugins at the beginning there. Next question is from Nicole. Is there anything I'd need to do to be able to use these? I was under the impression I had to install Python somehow, Windows 10 home user. No, you don't need to. No, I've never specifically installed Python on my computer. I'm going to tentatively say that you don't need to install anything separately. I'm a Windows 10 home user as well. I've never had to install anything separately. I'm just thinking of Microsoft Visual. No, I don't think so. I'm going to tentatively say no. If someone knows better, please give me a slap in the face and say, "Hey, Kai, you're wrong." But I do not believe that you need to install that separately, because when you update iClone, it's going to update. It's just going to utilize that Python code within iClone, so it doesn't need to be installed separately. Question from Doug. I noticed on the plugin page that the iClone versions are often noted in the plugin description. For example, 7.32 to 7.32. Does this mean it cannot be installed on the latest version? Well, Doug, to answer your question, from what I've experienced so far on experimenting with a variety of these plugins now, there may be plugins that are available on the marketplace that are not updated to the latest version, because certain plugins contain. I've experienced bugs like I talked about the autofocus plugin. You saw just automatically adding all those keyframes when we scrub through the timeline. That is something that shouldn't happen. But my guess would be that, yeah, possibly some of them need to be updated to the latest version, and they haven't been updated yet. And I believe on the wiki they have the dates which each plugin was generated or loaded up there's a GitHub as well available. I can't find the link right now, but that's available for all of our plugins as well. So if you want to check that out, feel free to check that out. Next question is from Jeff. The reason that second menu entry is there is because the menu name is Python_samples with an underscore rather than a space, as can be seen in the code. Open the main Python and change the underscore to a space. Save and restart iClone, it'll be fixed. Okay, so yeah, that looks like a good piece of advice from Jeff there. He mentioned, because I have an additional menu for Python samples, with an underscore is because the menu name is Python_samples with an underscore rather than a space, as can be seen in the code. Open the main. Okay, let's give this a try. I won't save and restart iClone, but so maybe in the main .py here, that was, I believe, the camera follow. Smooth camera follow. Let's take a look at this. My goodness. So here's the main script. You mentioned Python_samples. Yep. Oops, miss it. We'll have to take a look at that later. Maybe not a quick fix, anyways. And I feel too insecure to go through code live on a webcam or on a webinar when I haven't been in practice for years. So yeah, if you want to email me, Jeff, maybe a little bit more detail about that fix, I'll take a look at that. My email is kai@reallusion.com, in case you guys aren't aware. It's kai@reallusion.com. Let's move on to the next one for now, though. Question from Stan. What setting would be good to export videos to TikTok? I think I just kind of covered that with the last one, the render settings, similar for iPhone. Yeah, you can upload that to TikTok, I guess. Same process. Oh, okay. A couple comments later, Jeff said just ignore the Python sample menu. So it's okay. Just kind of went a couple seconds off topic there. Okay, Pete has a question. Why do some projects take so long to save in iClone? Smaller project takes a good minute to save. I'm not even sure, Pete. That's a kind of a technical question. I'll kind of respond with a, yeah, it's maybe a question for the forums. I can't really, I'm not familiar with the code of iClone, why it would take so long in certain cases, but I can't give you an answer on that. So apologies for that. Okay, Toby says, any chance the manual will be rewritten soon? It's great that it's thorough, but it's very difficult to read. Yeah, I think probably in the next couple of versions here, we'll take a look at, you know, the manual's been in process for 7, almost 8 versions now. So getting the whole thing redone is kind of an undertaking, but hopefully we'll be able to, you know, update any sort of errors that we come across, you know, from previous versions, whether they be spelling errors or something like that. Copywriting might not be super excellent, but yeah, that's a good comment there. Okay, Jeff provided a link here. Fortunately, I can't copy links in the Q&A window there, Jeff, so I can't really go to this particular section of the wiki for the RL doc widget. It could be through in the chat window, but again, I won't go into too much detail on trying to mess around with code, since I'll just kind of probably screw everything up even worse. So Pete asks, how do you add items to the Group Manager plugin? I would recommend just going through the video, since I haven't really tested it out. That's the one I left uninstalled so I could show you guys how to install something. So I haven't actually used it. This would be my first time using it if I did use it, but there's a video that kind of goes into detail on basically what you're asking. The group manager right here, it is increasing productivity. This video right here, just check it out. It's fairly simple. I know it's really simple, but again, I haven't used it one little bit, so recommend checking out that video. Okay, Swalihi asks, why is there not a French version of iClone? I think, the French version may be upcoming in the near future here. We have had, requests for iClone in various other languages as well. Again, we're a fairly small sized company, so we don't have a lot of resources, and we don't really have anyone speaking French or fluently native French at our company. But that'll be something to consider. And again, highly recommend placing your feedback in the forums, or even just in our webinar response form there as well, just to get that heard by our team. So the more demand we have for one feature, the more likely we are to respond. Just that we have to focus our resources as a small team on areas that we're pushing towards. So apologies for that, Swalihi. Tony asks, what is the preview mini view window for, and why would you use it? The preview window is just to kind of give you a, so say, oh, why am I over here? Oh, right, I just was talking about camera hotkeys. So, say for example, let's say I was adjusting, stuff right here. I wanted to take a look at, I'm trying to think of a scenario where we'd use the preview camera. I guess, just if you want another viewpoint of your scene, and you're animating your gesture camera. So say I'm animating this gesture camera, and I want to take a look at what it looks like from a different angle. I go to my preview camera right here, and again, you don't need to have the preview camera in the mini viewport. Press F8 and go into the timeline here, or in the viewport. You can also change your viewport camera to something like the gesture cam. So here I'll see my gesture cam, and I can modify my preview camera freely as well at the same time. And actually I can even see my gesture cam right here physically. If I take that and I press the W hotkey, I can move it physically, just like that. Okay, so if you want to get, manipulate your camera like that, you can do so as well. Sometimes that is a use for the mini viewport. Tons of uses. I won't go into all the detail, but I use it pretty often. Like, I use it to tell when the character was out of our view, out of our cone of view for our main camera there. So I use the preview camera to see when he arrived behind the barrel. That's what it was. Twas a barrel. Okay, let's go to our next question here. If I can get my, oh, there we go. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. I think we're done with the questions. Just a couple of comments to the last ones there. So apologies to anyone who's having difficulties installing the plugins. Again, that's something that we hopefully can work on in the near future here. The Python plugin is literally our newest feature with iClone, so it's still going through the growing pains. Hopefully, you guys can stick with us as we go through these growing pains with the Python plugin. So we'd love to also see your creative input by creating your own plugins as well. I think we're going to just end her off there. So thanks again so much, everyone, for attending. Make sure you fill out that survey to get your 10% discount from the content store. And stay tuned for more webinars, more tutorials all that fun stuff in the near future here on our learning centers and on our YouTube channel. And yeah, stay safe out there. Hopefully everyone's staying safe. And we'll hope to see you in the next webinar later this month.